I'm Brian Howlett with Pro Video Coalition. I am joined with Bob from BlackMagic Design. We are both from home. He in his home, me in my home. But we're talking about the new ATEM Mini Pro and how we can use this Zoom, live streaming, anything else that we need to do with social distancing. So we're talking about the ATEM Mini Pro. Bob is on his green screen at home, which is great, by the way, Bob.
Thank you.
And so new ATEM Mini Pro has a few more features. It's got the 4 inputs of HDMI, but you have live streaming, recording, a multi-view. Let's talk about the ATEM Mini Pro for a minute.
Sure. So actually, I think this may be the first ATEM Mini Pro to ATEM Mini Pro recording, so I like that. Brian and I both have them. And the ATEM Mini Pro is bringing features that some people had requested, like the multi-view, but other features I don't think anybody expected. So what we have now with the ATEM Mini Pro is the ability to stream straight from the encoder that's built in. So there's an encoder, streaming encoder built into the software, or built into the hardware, but through the software and through the front panel, you can actually activate the live stream straight away.
Bob, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah,
so just so
sure.
people know, this means that you don't have to open up an other program on your computer. You don't have to open, like in my case, it was OBS, whatever, one of those. But there's like a button in there where you can stream. And you can show us your ATEM Mini because you set up with 2 cameras.
So let me do that. Let me just point you over. So right there I have the ATEM Mini Pro, and there's some buttons over here on the upper right that were not on the original. So the one over here is for going live with the streaming. So it starts streaming. So you got streaming on and off, and you have record on and off. And then next to it is the keyer, which we had in the original, so that I could do my do the green screen. Now, in those buttons, when you have the streaming button active, what you're really doing, and I'm going to switch over to show you what this looks like on my other input, which shows the software. Now, in here, I can set up in the output area. I can set up a stream and a live stream. So I can go in and pick from the different, whether it's Twitch or Facebook or YouTube Live, and I could set that up. So I put it in so it's all ready to go. And once that's set, then just turning the buttons on and off on the hard panel will give you the ability to go live there. And there's also the ability to, in the XML, to edit the XML to set up different services. And there's instructions that you can find to do that. If you're not XML savvy, there are some programs that can help you kind of get through that. But this way, what you're able to do is, if you have a point-to-point service that you have your own streaming, a server, then you could do that. Or if you want to go to one of the other streaming services, you can put it in the XML so it would have your login and your password and whatnot, and so then when you activate that stream, it'll just go to that service. So that's really great. And the thing about it is, because the encoder is doing the work, the heavy lifting, if you will, the laptop or the computer that you're using, which you're going to borrow the bandwidth from that, so you'll probably borrow the Wi-Fi from that to give it via the Ethernet connection, to give it the bandwidth to go and do the stream, but the computer itself is not going to have to do the heavy lifting of the encoding. This way you're getting better quality streaming because we're using our own encoder, and you won't be dropping frames, but also it reduces the strain on the computer so that it's free to do other things. In some cases, people have the computer playing back graphics or video or whatever into the ATEM Mini or Mini Pro.
Yeah, and that's also just a point of sound. Is when I've streamed that all the way before, and they can, I don't have a very new laptop, and you can just hear it churning, trying to process this footage, and you really can't do anything else. It's just too much heavy lifting for some laptops.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we added was the ability to record the output through the USB-C port on the ATEM Mini Pro. So the Pro has the USB-C port just like the original, but on the original it's to connect to the computer so that you can have control without having to use Ethernet. In this case, because you can use the Ethernet port to actually do the streaming, the USB-C port then becomes open to hook up to a drive, and then you can record record what you're actually streaming. And you would record the exact same bit rate as the stream, but you would have an exact recording.
Yeah, so you could then hand off that recording to someone who needed it or to an editor if you were going to add in like photos or videos that you might not have had access to during the live stream. We've all been on live streams that aren't perfect. Or something happens and you need to kind of clean it up, and you might want to post that in a web post or on your website as well. One of the things too that's important is you also have the MultiViewer, so you can see if you have it up like if as a screen outside, behind your camera or near your camera. You can see where you're streaming your megabytes per second, I believe, and whether or not you're recording too. Is that correct?
That's correct. So on that screen, and I don't have access to it here, but on our site, on the website, you have great pictures of it. It shows that you have program and preview, you have the 4 source windows, and then you have the media player window, you have the streaming window, which would show you what service you're connected to or not connected to, and what whether you're live streaming or whether it's on or off. Red light would come on, and then also the record. The window with the recording would show you if you're recording, how much time is left on the disk, that type of thing. And then the 8th window on the bottom right shows the audio, and it shows the audio meters of every input, the 4 inputs, as well as the 2 mic inputs, as well as the program audio output, so that you can take a quick glance and realize that I am on, and what has an input and whatnot. So it's a great way to get a real overview of all of the sources at one glance. So that's another new feature. People were asking for it, but of course, as I say, we added some other things that I don't think they were expecting.
Yeah, the glances, being able to glance at a monitor to make sure everything is there is important, because in the past, if you're using like software to help stream, then you might not be able to really see what the software is doing. I've heard plenty of stories of people who thought they were recording a stream and they weren't.
Right.
None of us likes to make mistakes. We want to be able to glance at something like, okay, we're good, or we need to fix something right away. And if you're in the middle of something like we are right now, and I'm looking at a camera and I have lights and everything else, it's hard to I'm going to dive into something and make sure it's there.
Yeah.
You just want to look at the screen. I'm good. Moving on.
Yeah, it's true, and the red lights help, obviously. So you really do know whether you are streaming or not. As you say, I have my MultiView just out of eyesight right now, but I can see audio meters moving as I'm talking to the camera, but I could also see whether things are red or not on those windows, which is great, because when you really think about it, this type of product is really best used in the smaller environments where you may not have another person with you. I mean, look at us. We're doing a multicam shoot with a green screen, and it's just me on one end, and you're doing a camera and whatnot on your end, and so we have tools that are designed to be used by the on-air talent, if you will, but also can expand greatly going upstream, where you could have a full ATEM advanced panel. You could, all those kind of add-ons, and since the software is the same layout, no matter what ATEM you're using, that also helps people either move upstream, moving from an ATEM Mini all the way up, or also people that are familiar with the larger ATEMs to get on one of the ATEM Minis with the software and say, oh, I know this software. It's the same. It just has 4 inputs.
Yeah, and then what's also great is it's not just about the ATEM Mini Pro from BlackMagic. in these times of the corona or the coronavirus, COVID-19. It's also a camera control from the ATEM Mini software into the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema cameras, 4K and 6K. So you could, ideally, in the situation we're both in, set up what we have and then dial in your camera the way you need it to be without leaving your seat. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. That was an add-on that came with the announcement of the ATEM Mini Pro, but also the camera control is part of the ATEM Mini. So people that bought the original ATEM Mini have some extra features that they didn't know they were going to get, and it's really exciting to be able to have. So as you say, I have a Pocket Cinema Camera 4K here for my head-on shot, and if I had if you have a lens that's fully controllable for zoom and focus, then you can do that through the software. I mean, that's what's really great about it. And there are some lenses from Olympus and Panasonic, the Lumix lenses, that you can have full control like that, which is awesome. And to be able to shade it, to be able to play with the gain, which in the camera side is ISO, but in broadcast world it's gain, and has a wide range because these cameras have such a wide ISO range. So you can go all the way up to 25,600, which I think is plus 36 or something crazy like that. So in gain, so it's really great to have that type of control. But also we're getting the feedback. The record light, it becomes an on-air light. So you have red for live, you're on air, green if it's in preview, and then orange if it's in record. Because one of the other things, not only can you record from the ATEM Mini Pro with the USB-C output, but you can also put those cameras, the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K and 6K, you can put those cameras into record, which allows you to record BlackMagic RAW on the internal recording media for those cameras, which means that later you could go back, recreate the stream you just did, but at really high resolution.
Yeah, and then you have a lot of flexibility to either make, in this case, make your end look good, or maybe the other end look good. And I mean, to be honest, anything's better than a laptop camera these days.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And the ability to plug, like I have this microphone plugged into the Pocket camera, so it comes in as input 1, but then I leave up that input no matter what other source I'm going to play back here. So that way I always have my mic. But this way I'm using that microphone. I'm not using the microphone off the camera. I'm using the microphone off the laptop. So many people are doing things at home and they start to sound hollow sometimes because they don't have a decent mic, or they're just in an environment that just sounds like they're in a cave.
Yeah.
And, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to tell people, just throw some towels around or something to kind of absorb sound if you don't have the ability to get a microphone, or wear your earbuds or whatever. I noticed the local sports guys, finally somebody told them, hey, maybe just wear your earbuds. You would sound a lot better. And sure enough, they do.
Yeah. In my case, I'm still new with the ATEM Mini Pro, and you are hearing my computer audio, but I'm recording my my mic up here, which is a shotgun mic, but I'm still in my garage, which is, well, not the...
You sound good, though. There are so many people that I don't know what they're doing. They put the echo effect on or something. But
if you mix in a laptop camera and the laptop or phone audio, then you get a bad picture and you get bad audio, and really no one's listening to you anymore after that.
Yeah, that's true. It's better to sound good than to look good, but it's certainly good to look and sound good.
Right, so we have a lot of new features of the ATEM Mini Pro. We have the new firmware for the Pocket Cinema cameras, so we can control the gain and shading and make your at-home studio that we all now have seemed to very quickly adopted. But we also have a whole other thing. We have a way to get media to your ATEM Mini. Is that correct?
So, like for instance, in my situation now, I'm using a green screen, so but the still frame that I have here is actually from a picture of my family room, but it's being played back through the media player.
Wait. That's a picture of your family room?
Yeah.
That's a really nice family room.
Well, through the magic of television, you can make it look better. But but I could just as easily change this background, so now I'm at the Grand Canyon, right? So, and these still frames are all available. There's a 20 slide media pool, and the media pool itself can be used. It can be used from a plugin that we have for Photoshop. So you can do something in Photoshop and assign, if it's on the network, you assign it which input you want it to go to in the media pool. So you could change that and then literally change it on air. So somebody else could be hooked up to the software and decide that they're going to change it to another slide or whatever. They can also put in lower thirds. So if they could, you can't use, there's only one media player, but there's ways to do that. There's also ways to use a hyperdeck, which we'll get into in a second, where you could play back video or play back key and fill for a graphic, that kind of thing. So there's quite a few uses there, but to have the 20 still for the other thing that you can do is I can capture a still frame. So I could actually just capture this one where right. So now I have that still frame in my it goes into my media pool. And so I think that is another one that's kind of cool that you can actually do that. So if you wanted to capture a still frame, so for instance, right now, so I'll cut to, I'll go to camera 2, which is our ATEM Mini, right? And then if I go back to the still, that's just me, looking dopey. I don't know that I would want to do that again. But I'm just saying that, there's ways to really up the game. So for instance, if there's a graphic or something that you just need last minute, you can actually do a still capture into slot 1 of the media player live, as I just did, because clearly I didn't pose for that one.
This all around, this seems like a really simple setup that I could see like local broadcasters using, people like us using, local broadcasters, because sometimes they just need to have a background of the studio, which is I've seen people use. So as maybe their work from home situation isn't as nice as ours, or smaller space like in New York City or LA, and they still want to give that look of being in the newsroom or in the studio. But you can also, other than the media page, you can take the new HyperDeck Mini and add other media. Is that correct?
Right. So the HyperDeck Mini will allow you to, as an input into the ATEM Mini, because the HyperDeck Mini actually has a HDMI output, so it can just go pump it right into one of the inputs here on the ATEM Mini, and you could use it to play back either videos or full frame videos, or like I said, you could do key and fill to do animated lower thirds, that kind of thing. The other thing we added was the ability to record on it in different frame rates and with ACC audio. So this way, when you record something, it's compatible with YouTube straight away, so you can upload there. And it has different bit rates that we've added in there too. So while there are different bit rates that you can stream at through the ATEM Mini Pro, there's also different bit rates that you can record at in H.264 in the ATEM Mini. And so that was an update that we did, but also the file transfers, because a lot of times people will use the ATEM Minis to play back animated, animated sequences in monitors on news show sets and things like that. And instead of having to physically sneaker net a disk back and forth, if it's on the network, they can transfer via FTP. And we've upped the speed of that, so it's so much faster than it was before. And also we've extended the recording time of a single file to about 3 hours, depending on the frame rate. And so that also is another advantage to using it. So it's a recorder, it's a playback, it's a playback for your ATEM Mini setup, it's a playback for your monitor. So I've even seen some home studios that they basically just put a giant television behind them and play graphics there, which is that's easy. Everybody's got a big TV.
Yeah, well, I actually don't have a big TV. Well, it's different reasons. I make a lot of TV, and sometimes you make a lot of TV. It's like the mechanic. Mechanic always has a car at home that that's
needs
not
repair
because
right.
sometimes you just want to read a book.
Yeah, we had no air conditioning. We had window units, and my father sold HVAC systems in chemical labs. So yeah, the cobbler's son has no shoes, and the HVAC guy has no air conditioning.
Yeah, and the camera guy has a 32-inch TV.
That's right.
So all around, BlackMagic has come to the table for those in need during these times. These are such strange times for all of us. But one of the things I've really learned in essentially 2 days so far of making videos, that we would have been at NAB with 100,000 people and 90,000 people jockeying for position to see the products and to talk to you. But now we can kind of deep dive on things. So this is an example where you can actually show the picture, your camera of the buttons and what goes where. But like, I had a phone call with Zeiss, and Zeiss is they've added like a bunch of tech behind the new Radiance lenses. And what's great is you can now show all that stuff a little bit better and a little bit more detail than we would on an NAB.
Yeah, I think it's a different way of doing these things, but the thing about it is that we get to spend a little bit more time. In our case, we're actually able to use the tech, which is great. I mean, new products, they're only released for 2 weeks now, the ATEM Mini Pros. But also, I think that we can have a little bit different, relaxed conversation without having, as you say, all those other people running around, and we certainly can keep our time a lot better than we can at NAB when Vegas time becomes I don't know what.
Yeah, Vegas time, and then you have the people jockeying for position, and you might be able to step up to a camera for a few minutes, but there's always someone waiting. So they're never really able to dive deep. And this new setup, I mean, like, the silver lining is I feel like we're able to share more information and show people how they can do this at home.
Yeah, I mean, that part is really cool because, as you say, this is a unique time. People have resisted or just not spent the time to try and do this type of work from home and doing video conferencing, and that it's been around forever, but I don't think people have fully taken advantage, whereas we have really started to see it being used not just for social interaction at night, but also for work, and I think it's a great opportunity. Now, we had unbelievable timing to have already introduced the ATEM Mini in September that was shipping in the end of November, and then of course we added this new product that we had, it was on the books for us to bring it. We didn't create it in the last 3 weeks, but the idea that we have products that people need right now, and that's been great because people are using it for in churches, people are using it for school education, they're using it for interviews, they're using it for business, for home use, as well as medical use. Now that we're doing, you can do the medical visits over Zoom calls and things like that. I think that we'll see more and more uses of all these products, and it's just great because at the end of the day, if you have good looking video and good quality sound, then you can do it, and it's not the old kind of stuff that maybe we had a few years back.
Yeah, and I mean, my mom's a teacher, and she very recently told me how difficult video is, and has a new appreciation for what I do, and which I've enjoyed. And
that's good.
And she's seen this setup of mine, and she's like, I need that. And I was like, yeah, because teaching on a laptop webcam is impossible because it doesn't. Unfortunately, they're just not at the capacity that we need. But if you're teaching and you have a board, these kids, like, we're sharp. You're sharp, I'm sharp, I can see everything, and you can see everything. And that's like the next step as we keep going down this strange new world.
Absolutely. I was a guest speaker on a college class recently, and the professor is also, he's a part-time professor, but he's full-time in our business, works for one of the major networks. And So he has a class that he and his wife actually teach, and so they switched to Zoom for it. But because he has, he has some of the BlackMagic equipment in his domain, he's able to play videos for them and have a camera. And then he brought me in as a special guest, and we were able to talk about tech and talk about the business and all that. And in some ways, it was almost easier for me to join that class. It actually was easier for me to join that class by just popping on at 5 minutes before class time and being a part of that class and showing them technology and also sharing stories about the business, which is always fun too.
Well, it's a new normal that we're in. BlackMagic has serendipitously released the products that we need at these times and for foreseeable future. Bob, thank you for spending the time to talk about the ATEM Mini Pro, the new firmware for the Pocket Cinema cameras, and the HyperDeck. I'm going to mess that up. The HyperDeck. Mini, thank you.
HyperDeck Studio Mini, all set.
HyperDeck
Yes.
Studio Mini. I laugh at myself because I sometimes have brain farts on names. But thank you for joining us, and it's been a pleasure. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming around, and really appreciate you spending the time.
Great. Thanks for doing this, and good luck to everybody out there.